Hello and welcome to Mac Power Users. My name is Stephen Hackett. I'm joined as always by my friend and yours, Mr. David Sparks.
Hello, Mr. Hackett. How are you today?
I am good. How are you?
I am dealing with news here because I woke
Yeah.
up this morning ready to make Mac Power Users and found out that Apple launched a Creator Studio, Apple Creator Studio, a new suite of subscription software from our favorite fruit company.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to get into that. We had a whole show. We're going to still do what we planned, but we're going to insert that at the top. So we're going to talk about that. But you have some very exciting news.
Yeah, I've been teasing it in the show the last few weeks. The Apple Productivity Field Guide for 2026 lives. Thank you, everybody who's been asking about it. We got links in the show notes. You can check it out. This is a weird one for me. I do it every year. It is where I don't really talk about, Apple scripts and nerdy techniques as much as just, how to figure out what's important to you and do your thing. We did a show on this last year, so I'm not going to go over it all again, but I went on a journey over the course of my life where I figured out a system that works for me and accidentally started sharing it with people, and then intentionally did when I started releasing the Apple Productivity, or not the Mac Sparky Productivity Field Guide. It's been a thing I've been doing for a couple years now, and in some ways, I think it's probably the most important thing I've ever done because I get these emails from people talking about how it has really helped them. One of my favorites was somebody wrote me and said, yeah, my wife noticed I was a better person before I did. And I thought, well,
Wow.
hey, Sparky, you're doing okay. And
Yeah.
it's a thing that I feel like my grandchildren could probably read someday and get something out of it. I mean, I'm not sure Devin think will still be around then, but these concepts will. So it's a virtue-based system, kind of based on the ancient Greeks, the idea that you want to be your best self. And this year we've got the update out. I've been doing it for a couple of years and doing these webinars, so I learn a lot in teaching it. I also do it for free to college kids and high school kids every summer. So I've got a lot of kind of feedback from people going through this, and this year I added more content to it. I think it's like about 11 videos and about 10,000 words in the book. So there's a book for this one and a video course. And I redesigned the workshop. If you get the pro version, you get a 8-week workshop, and we also do quarterly planning calls. So it's just kind of a whole system. I'm really proud of it. And if you'd like to get it for the next week, as a MPU listener, you get it 10% off for PFG MPU. So that's the code PFG. No spaces. We got links in the notes. It is a little, like I said, out there, but it's good. One of the things I did this year, Stephen, is I feel like I have got less apologetic about being lofty, Like in the videos, I called this a heroic journey. It was tough for me to get to say that, right? Because I grew up Gen X. Our favorite song was "Everybody Wants to Rule the World." So we look at the world with a cocked eyebrow, and I don't feel that way anymore. I feel like this is something that's worth pursuing. And anyway, check it out, gang. Let me know what you think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. Congratulations on updating it. That's one of my favorite things about it, I think, is that it's like a growing living thing over time, which is really cool.
Yeah, well, I get a lot of good feedback, and I'm constantly reading on these topics, refining my own ideas around it. It's a fun journey, and it's very rewarding for me to see people for whom it works.
Yeah. So today on More Power Users, which is the longer ad-free version of the show that we do each and every week, we're going to talk through the news of Apple and Google joining forces. Apple's going to be using Gemini's foundation models moving forward. The ramifications of that, I think, are both unknown and possibly very broad. So we're going to get into that at the end for members.
I have thoughts. I have so many thoughts.
A lot of questions still.
But before we get into that, the big news today, even though we're not a news show, but I think this is software enough that we can put some breaking news in, is Apple has released a new product called the Apple Creator Studio.
Yeah, it's a bundle of a bunch of their software. When this was announced, I kind of thought back for a second. I was like, Apple, their apps have sort of become independent over the years, right? You used to have like iWork and iLife, and like back in the day, you buy Final Cut Studio and it would be in a box with like 8 DVDs and cost, thousands of dollars.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah.
I bought Final Cut when it was a lot of money. I remember saving money for it, and all of the manuals, all the printed manuals.
Yeah, and Apple's apps have been kind of all independent while the rest of the world has gone to subscription, and this is what Apple is doing. So, Apple Creator Studio includes Apple's core sort of creative apps. So you have Final Cut Pro on the Mac and iPad. You have Logic Pro on the Mac and the iPad. Two apps that I own, and I bought Logic probably 13 years ago. I think
Yeah.
it's been a long time. And then Pixelmator Pro joins the family. People may remember that Apple bought Pixelmator and Pixelmator Pro. Was it last year? I think early 2025.
Yeah, and this answers the question we all had. Are they going to just scrap the parts out of Pixelmator Pro and add them to, the Photos app? Or, what are they going to do? Well, they're going to keep it a separate app. That's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, super interesting. It's going to be on the Mac and on the iPad, which is cool. There are some elements of Pixelmator, some features that show up elsewhere, so they are integrating it. We'll talk about that in a second. And then 3 Mac apps that I think, like Motion, Compressor, and MainStage. Motion is for animated graphics. It's tied in with Final Cut. Compressor is it's a media transcoding app. I haven't ever opened Compressor, I don't think, or Motion.
We use Compressor all the time for the Mac Sparky stuff
Do you?
because
Okay.
when, we do a Final Cut project and we want to deliver it to multiple formats, Compressor does all that for you. It's actually, if you know kind of thing with Compressor. It's actually quite useful if you do video production and you're using Final Cut.
Okay. And then MainStage, which you can use. You turn your Mac into part of your musical instrument setup. I know people who have toured with bands who use MainStage on stage, right? I've got friends who use MainStage on a Mac with a full keyboard in front of them. So all of that sort of wrapped up now in one.
Yeah. And the first thought you're going to have is, well, hey, wait a second. I already paid for all these applications. What's going on here? It's was it, I think, $12.99 a month or $129 a year to get them, but Apple's promising additional features. So if you're using Numbers and Keynote, you're going to get additional templates.
Yeah.
And some hand-wavy AI stuff in the press release. Not sure what that exactly means yet.
Yeah. So $12.99 a month, $129 a year. If you're a college student, it's $299 a month or $29.99 a year, which is an incredible deal. Even at the sort of normal price, this is way cheaper than like what I pay for Adobe Creative Cloud every month. Now, these apps are different, right? Like they're not really one-to-one, but in the context of subscription professional apps, I think if you were really deep into these apps, this is a good deal. You mentioned Keynote, Pages, Numbers. So those apps and Freeform will continue to be free, and you can, by the way, continue to just outright buy the other apps. Like if you just want to go buy Final Cut Pro, you'll still be able to do that. But the formerly known as iWork apps, they're still going to be free. They've been free for a long time, but you'll have access, if you are subscribed to Apple Creator Studio, to some premium content and some AI features. So the premium content, what we've seen of this so far, this actually launches in a couple weeks, but what we've seen so far is they have a collection of curated photos and illustrations and graphics. Think something like maybe like Unsplash, but it's Apple done from how they're talking about it. And that's integrated right into the app. So like I imagine this is like in the media picker, right? If you're in Keynote, you can like select a photo and it brings up your photo library. That's been there for 100 years. This will be sort of external content, but you search for it in the app. You're not going out to a website and then downloading it and dropping it in. It's all integrated, which I think is great. Like I think that's really nice. And then a lot of AI features. The website has like 6 or 7 examples. A lot of them I think are sort of an extension of where the writing tools have already been. Like Keynote can take your presentation and give you notes, like speaker notes.
I'm actually interested in that because I do a lot of webinars with the labs, and a lot of times what I do is I generate a markdown outline, and then I use IA Presenter because it's just so easy. You throw a markdown file at it and you got a presentation. But I always, when I do that, kind of miss Keynote. Keynote gives me
Hmm.
some tools that I don't get with the other tools. And I'd be very interested in testing that out, see how it goes.
Yeah, I think it could be really interesting. Something else Keynote can do is it can automatically correct things like layout or typography errors or alignment issues just really quickly. I love this. I don't do a lot of presentations, certainly not as much as you do, but I really care about like if I have a slide deck, like really making sure it's really tight, right? Like everything is the same across the slides. My header's not like slightly moving around
Yeah.
throughout the presentation. So it can take care of those things for you. And so I mentioned earlier that a Pixelmator feature has been expanded outwards. Pixelmator has had a great feature for years called super resolution. So you take an image and it uses machine learning slash AI to upscale it for you. And in my experience, it is actually a really pretty good job. And that is now seems to be sort of built into the media tools in the other apps. And so if you have an app or photo in Pages, right, and it's not big enough, you can use super resolution seemingly right within Pages and make the image bigger. I think that's great
Yeah.
instead of having
It's
to
like,
round trip it somewhere.
it's that feature we saw when we were a kid that we thought was fake, where you get a picture of they'd have a spy and they'd take a picture of the license plate and then they put it on a computer and it would like phase
Yeah.
in to get sharper and they'd like,
Yeah.
oh, it's XYZ. Okay, go get
Yeah.
them.
Computer enhance.
Yeah, exactly. And all us nerds are like, that's not possible. You can't do that. And now it is, and it's across the Apple suite. So good on that.
Hmm.
I am just in general a big fan of Pixelmator. I got it ironically because I didn't have to pay a subscription for it, but I got really good at it over the years. When I was talking earlier about the productivity field guide, I redid the sales pages this year. That's all done in Pixelmator Pro. I use that app almost daily, and I really love it. The original development team was very dedicated to making it a dedicated Mac app using all the great, Mac features. I think that's one of the reasons why Apple probably bought it ultimately. But it is a great app for photo stuff. I've never gone down the Photoshop rabbit hole, and I know people listening are pros at it and make it run circles probably around Pixelmator. But for normal people like me, Pixelmator is just really great.
Yeah. Yeah. It is very Mac like. They've always done a good job at that. And yeah, I think it was that time period you mentioned, like, are they going to do something? Like that was a little stressful, I think, for
Yeah.
people who use this app and depend on it. But I hope that being part of this subscription bundle that it will continue to get love. And look, Apple has a good track record here, right? These apps, Keynote Pages, Logic, Final Cut, whatever, they all get attention, right? Some maybe more than others. Like, again, I don't use Motion. I can't speak to that one specifically, but I know that the apps that I use in this list, which is most of them, they get updates. Like they get new features. And I think Pixelmator hopefully will just slot right into that. And I think that's really good.
And, always shout out to those nerds in Pittsburgh making iWork Suite.
Hmm.
Apple's got a team out there that is working on it constantly, which is why we're always getting updates on it. I hope that this revenue from the subscriptions some of it will go their way, so we'll get even more features and more extra content for them. The proof is in the pudding on these subscriptions, right? If you're going to charge somebody, you got to deliver the goods. But I'm generally positive about this.
Yeah. How do you feel about the sort of extra content and features in iWork being behind the subscription? Like I'm totally fine with those core, whatever it was, 6 or 7 apps. I think I struggle a little bit. Like if I have numbers and it's free and it's like really good for the Apple ecosystem for those apps to be free, like is it weird? Is it like upselly in a way that's uncomfortable to have features behind a subscription from an Apple app?
I mean, it depends on the feature, I think. Like,
Hmm.
if they were going to take existing features and move them to the paywall, it's like you go to print it and says, oh, you need to pay, to get the print feature. Then that's BS. But I think probably what happened is, somebody in a meeting saw, the original pitch for this was everything except the iWork suite. And somebody said, we got to make it more appealing. Let's add the iWork suite, but we're just going to give them additional content. I almost feel like, this happened as a way to upsell the product. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah.
And in that case, I don't think they're going to really cripple these apps for the free versions. I think they're probably just going to add some extra, layering that you wouldn't get otherwise if this didn't exist.
Yeah, I think so too. And yeah, they're not gating existing features. Like that's sort of like the golden rule when it comes to app subscriptions, right? You can't take something that was free and make it paid.
But what was it like? BMW did something where like you had to pay subscription fee to like I think get it to like move the seats or something. It was something really dumb.
Heated seats, I think.
Heated seats, yeah. It's like, yeah, this if you stray into that territory, I think it's really bad and really lame for a $1 trillion company to nickel and dime you like that. If they're truly bringing added features and like I said, they're sending that iWork team some additional resources and people and ways to add things that they've always wanted to do but they couldn't. Well, then that's good. It's making it better. I have a pitch for the Pittsburgh team. I would like you to use AI to critique my presentation. I think it'd be great if it went through and said, "Oh, your font sizes are too small," or I mean, now that you've got an AI engine, as we're going to talk about in more power users, why not use it to help you make it better in addition to formatting?
Yeah. I mean, I hope that these will expand over time and become more valuable to people. So yeah, that is Apple Creator Studio. I think it's really interesting that they're moving to this model. Again, professional apps, like Apple was out of step that you could buy something 15 years ago and still use it. And I totally get the argument too of like, well, Apple's a hardware company. They should make their money on hardware. I just don't think that's completely true anymore. And I certainly don't have a problem with apps with subscriptions for access, right? The whole indie app scene operates that way. But when Apple does it, I think it's a slightly different thing because of their size, right? Yeah. Because no one else is making apps like this for their platform. But even then, the Keynote, Pages, Numbers, Freeform, like they're also going to be free. And I think that's good and important. I actually think it's like a pretty big deal that those apps are free when you buy a new product because it makes them more competitive than Office, right? And if you need Office, you need Office, right? Like we've talked about that a lot. But a lot of people don't. Like, I really don't. I have it because occasionally I need something. But, like, for instance, like my mom and her business partner, they run an entire company out of Pages and Numbers. Like, it's incredible. Like, they've gotten so good at it. And, it's all that they need. And it came free on their MacBooks. And so why look elsewhere? I think that's really key that Apple's keeping that.
Yeah, I mean, my feelings would be very different if this announcement was now you have to pay for access to Keynote, Pages, and Numbers.
Yeah, me too.
But that's not the case. Like I said, I think this was just icing on the cake of saying give those things additional features. And overall, to me, this is a no-brainer. I'm going to sign up for it. I just looking at the list, I use Final Cut Pro and Logic often. Mm-hmm. I use Pixelmator even more, Keynote, Pages and Numbers. I do want the additional features. If there's additional features, I want them. Freeform, I'm in on. Compressor we use. And MainStage, I use with my little MIDI sax all the time. I plug it in my computer and I play, and I've got a bunch of like Michael Brecker sounds and stuff in there that's really cool. So I am the perfect person to buy this. The only one of these I never touch really is Motion. Mm-hmm. But how about you? Are you going to throw some money at Apple in a few weeks?
Yeah, I think I will. I mean, I use Final Cut some. I use Logic a good bit. I use Pixelmator Pro for some like select tasks. I learned Photoshop in college, so like I can do Photoshop.
Yeah.
But I sort of had a thought this morning in reading this that I'd never had before because family sharing is supported by this, which is really awesome. But my daughter plays keyboard and she's picking up the guitar, and she has an M1 MacBook Pro, like the weird one with the touch bar, and I was like, oh, like. I could set her up with MainStage. Like her keyboard can work with it. And so, yeah, I think I'm going to set her up with that so she can explore that. I think she would really enjoy it. I never would have thought about that before because I didn't own MainStage, right? Yeah. I wouldn't have gone out and bought it necessarily for her to experiment. But I'm going to use these apps. I do want the features in iWork, if anything, to continue to talk about them and cover them. And it's like, oh, yeah, like this actually kind of opens it up to the rest of my family, which I think is really neat.
You should really make an effort to learn Pixelmator Pro and see if you actually still need Adobe afterwards.
Yeah, I'm trapped. I wrote this in the footnote of my article about this morning. I'm trapped in a pretty expensive Adobe plan because really I currently use often Photoshop and Illustrator, but also Audition. And like I can't combine those in any way that's less expensive than buy the whole thing. And I even though I edit, I don't do much editing anymore, but when I do edit membership stuff, I do it in Logic. And I edit some stuff for church, but I use Audition for my pre-flight stuff. Its noise cancellation is really good. Its volume matching and leveling is really good. And so I pre-flight an Audition and then go to Logic. Again, I could change my workflow. Like if I were really going to step away from Adobe, I could change my workflow. But I'm sort of like trapped in this, whatever it is, like $69 a month thing, because their bundle, like Adobe's chopped up their bundles in so many ways. It's very easy to just be like, oh, I'll just buy all of it, right? Now, if you just need Photoshop for 6 months in college, like that's great. It's pretty cheap. But I like this from Apple, that it's all of this stuff, right? They don't have like, oh, if you're a video person, you need this, and if you're an audio person, you need this over here. Like it's one price, you get all of it. Like I will not download Motion because I have access to it all of a sudden. But if I had a need for it, then it's available to me without an upsell or extra cost. I think Apple's doing this the best way they can, especially compared to somebody like Adobe. So, and I'm sure people will not love the subscription aspect of it, but I think if you're going to move this way, I think honestly, Apple's done a pretty good job at setting this up, and the price seems pretty good to me. And so, yeah, I will be signing up, and you're right. I should give Pixelmator Pro another look, because I do a couple things in it, but I should give it a run for its money, so to speak.
Yeah, as I understand it, Photoshop's generative AI features are pretty impressive, and Pixelmator Pro doesn't do much of that. Overall, for photo and graphic building, it's very good.
Okay, so what we were going to talk about today is all about Apple weather, and we're still going to do that. So if you look down and look at like, oh my gosh, how much time is left in this episode? That's what happened. But very briefly, I want to talk about kind of how we ended up where we are with Apple weather. I think it's important to have a little bit of context, because for a long time, Apple's weather offering was pretty bad. They had a dashboard widget, but it was very simple, just a simple like 5 or 6 day forecast and the conditions of where you were. If you wanted multiple locations, you had to have multiple widgets. So like I remember I'd have a widget for like Memphis, and then a widget where like my mom's family is in North Carolina, or like if you're traveling, like I'm going to San Francisco for Macworld, like I got to make a San Francisco widget. And that basically carried on to the iPhone, right? That initial weather app on the iPhone really just was the sort of the widget. In fact, Apple, I don't know if they ever talked about it externally this way. Maybe they did, but internally, I know they spoke about calculator, stocks, and weather as being widgets, not being like full applications. Now, under the hood, I think they had a lot more to do with widgets than the other apps did, but it was really simple. It was really straightforward. And, it was fine, I guess. As soon as the App Store opened in 2008, like I remember, if I go back through my App Store history, like other than like Evernote and 1Password, which I think is like every nerd's first downloads in 2008, I had several weather apps, like trying to find something that was better, more robust than Apple Weather. And Apple eventually got the picture. In iOS 7, we got closer to where we are now. I found this clip in the WWDC 2013 keynote where they're announcing iOS 7. You may remember this. Like the iPhone is like showing the weather app, and like snow is falling, right? And like collecting on the top of the forecast. And then like lightning strikes in the background behind the temperature. And the crowd goes crazy. Like people are like, whoa, look at that, And so that's kind of where we were the first, 2007, or really like 2000, I guess 4 or 5 with dashboard up through iOS 7. But then Apple got serious in 2020. And we talked about this on the show at the time. I'm sure people remember it, that Apple was going to acquire Dark Sky. Do you remember like sort of the sort of amazement at this?
Yeah.
People were freaking out.
Yeah. Well, because Dark Sky was like the magical weather app that could tell you when it was going to rain in 5 minutes and be right.
Yeah. That was its whole thing, was hyper local forecasting is what they called it. And some weather people were like, "Oh, it's not. You're not using real things. You're just like using the radar and predicting when it's like, yeah, but it worked. Like dark sky, I didn't love all the UI stuff in it, but I remember downloading it the first time, and the first time it told me it's going to rain at your location in 3 minutes, and then it did. I mean, it was like magic.
It's like, this can tell the future.
Yeah, it was unreal, and it was on the iPhone and it was on Android. I think it's really safe to say it was a lot of people's favorite weather app on both platforms. And so in 2020, Apple announces we're gonna buy it. We're gonna shut down the Android app. People, I remember the Android world like freaking out about this, throwing stones at Apple for doing it. Apple was always going to do that, right? As soon as it was announced. But there was kind of this period of time where it actually wasn't unlike the Pixelmator situation we spoke about a few minutes ago. It was like, well, what's Apple going to do with Dark Sky, right? Like they have a weather app. I think it was safe to assume they're going to somehow merge their app in Dark Sky or replace their app outright. Or maybe they just want the prediction stuff and like they're just going to paste that onto the weather app as we knew it at the time. And it took Apple some time. It actually took them longer than anticipated. Dark Sky for iOS lasted longer than they initially said it would. But eventually, we got the picture of Apple's vision here. And so with iOS 15 in 2021, so a year and a half later after the acquisition, we got the new weather app. And it was clear at that point, it's like, okay, what they did is they took their weather app and they took Dark Sky and they basically merged the best of both.
But they also released an API. So
yes.
That was the saving grace there.
It was. So we got WeatherKit, which if you use any third-party weather app, you've probably seen powered by Apple Weather at the bottom of it. And what they did is they took the data that is generated for the Apple Weather app and put it into an API so developers can use it in their apps. And there are lots of other weather APIs out there, but WeatherKit really has kind of become the default for indie weather apps. And I think for good reason. It's really easy to use if you're a developer, and it's private. Over the years, there have been stories about big name weather apps leaking or selling user location information. A lot of them have advertising in them that can be pretty gross. And, WeatherKit's just like, hey, this is the weather data. It is really easy to use. There's a very clear price structure of like how many calls you need a month is how much it's going to charge you. Apple's going to charge you for it. Because the key here is weather data is not free. It takes money and computers and data sources to gather all of this information, to synthesize it, and then to deliver it. I mean, think about it. Like where I'm sitting and where my brother is sitting, he is about 10 miles away from me, his house. But it may be raining at his house and not mine yet. That's how granular this stuff has to be. So Apple rolled this out, and like I said, once you start looking, you will see powered by Apple Weather just all over the place.
Yeah. It's like a solution you can trust if you want to make a weather app now. The hard part of getting the data is solved for you. And that's why we're going to, in addition to talking about Apple Weather, we're going to talk about some other apps that we like. In a lot of ways, this is some of the most interesting app development on the iPhone because it's a playground and people can try different UI interfaces and different looks. It's like it used to be Twitter apps that were like this. And now, in a lot of ways, it's weather apps and just plug into the Apple API. But, the point I wanted to make earlier is, they did jam Dark Sky into the weather app like everybody was afraid they would have. But by opening up the API, they made it possible for all weather apps to have those Dark Sky features. And that's, I think, really great for the platform and has this now rich ecosystem. In the meantime, they have their own app called the Weather app, and it has definitely evolved since the old days. And by the way, with the old days, just remember, Stephen, maybe you're a little too young, but it used to be to get the weather, you had to wait through the entire local news. They would always put the weather at the very end of the news. Like before the internet, getting the weather was like it took like a half hour of your day to find out if it was going to rain tomorrow. It's kind of amazing when you think about it now that we get notice 2 minutes before the rain's going to hit us.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just the old guy here.
Yeah.
But
No, I mean, I remember it as a kid, and I even remember like in like the printed newspaper, it'd have like the 5-day forecast.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, even in college, right? Because I was an editor at my college newspaper for a long time. We would have the next day's weather, so the day the paper would come out, we would have the forecast on the bottom of the front page. And this was in 2004, 5, 6, 7. Like even then, that's not that long ago. I mean, it is, but it's not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But now we've got a happy situation where Apple has a much better weather app, and they also have an API that lets other people make much better weather apps. But we wanted to focus today on the Apple weather app. You know,
Yeah.
how's it going?
It's gone. I think they've really done a good job with it. I went into this because this has been an outline we've been working on for a little while. I went into this thinking it's going to be fine, but I'm really going to strongly recommend third-party apps. And like, honestly, it's really good. It's cross-platform. It runs on iOS, iPadOS, the Mac, and the Apple Watch, which is great. We're going to talk about the Apple Watch client specifically a little bit later on, but it's just built in. It's free, right? You're not paying a subscription for the weather data that's being subsidized, I guess, by other things that Apple charges us for. Maybe the Creator Studios help them pay for WeatherKit. I don't know, but I don't know how financing works at Apple. Who knows? But in many ways, it has a lot of the features we expect from a weather app. So you can set your home and work location. Weather can pull it from contacts if you want it to. It can use the suggested locations API based on your activity. So this also surfaces in places like maps and even in like journaling suggestions. This is all kind of the same system where it knows like other locations I go to frequently. And so say that this is not the case in my life, but say that I, commuted an hour to work every day. Then if I didn't, I could have that. Or maybe every weekend I drove an hour the other way to visit my parents, right? Then it could suggest, oh, hey, you're at this address an hour away. Let's add that as a location into weather. So it can be proactive in that way. And of course, all that syncs, right? All the location stuff syncs between all of the clients. So you can have, you add something on your phone and later it's on your Mac. I think that's pretty table stakes these days in a weather app, but I think Apple Weather does it well. And it's using all the integration of location stuff within the iOS ecosystem, which is good.
Yeah, it really picks up on all that. And it works across, and it works really good on the Mac. That's one of the things, they've got now in the menu bar on your Mac. I mean, there's a million third-party apps that do that, but they've continued to evolve this stuff where using the weather app, you're going to get good data on any device.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. I love how I'm getting the menu bar. I used to have a third-party app that did it that was kind of janky. And I was like, no, it's just a built-in menu bar item option in that relatively terrible section of system settings.
And it remembers your locations there as well. So if you've got multiple locations, you're going to see it. But really, I think with an application for weather, the real thing where you fall in love with it or you hate it is in the panel design. How does it render the weather?
Yeah.
And this is where I thought we'd lose you on Team Weather, because I know you're pretty particular about panel design. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I do want some maybe more control than it offers, but I think it's really good because everything is kind of immediately available to you visually, and you're not caught up in kind of building your own user interface like you can in some other apps. Even though I personally like that, I think Apple's done a good job here. So yeah, you get a bunch of panels, hourly and 10-day forecasts as you would expect, but you also have some other things. So you have the moon phase and sunrise and sunset, two things that I especially care about: sunrise and sunset, air quality, UV index, kind of other things that they're weather adjacent, I would say, but people have come to expect them within weather apps. They're all there. And then you've got what I think is actually really nice, an averages panel. And any of these panels, you can go in and you can click or tap on them and you can see more information. So for instance, I just tapped the averages panel for me, and I can see that, okay, we're going to be 11 degrees above average today, but it also shows me the normal range, like what is considered normal for this time of year. But the same thing with rain and snow totals. So I can see, okay, the 30-day rolling average is like 4.6 inches for my location in Memphis, but we are inches below that. So I can very quickly tell, like, oh, it has been a dry month, right? Well, it's January, so all my plants look dead, but like in the summer, that can be really useful information, and it's just really easily accessible to you. So all of these panels have a detail view. Click or tap into them, you can see more information. Some of them are a little inconsistent in terms of like the layout within the popover or exactly what it shows, but I think they're all generally pretty good. I don't have any like real specific complaints about that, except that some of them really don't look or act like other ones.
Yeah, it's not as we're a show called Mac Power Users. We're people who want to squeeze the most out of this stuff. It's not designed for power users. It's designed for typical users, and they're presented really kind of like widgets, like widget panes. So you just scroll through the app, you see what you want, and then you get there. A big concern where I live is wind. I live kind of in foothills, and when the wind gets going, it's like 50 miles an hour, and stuff gets knocked over. So I'm always kind of keeping an eye on the wind this time of year. Also, this is like, wildfires come with wind. So I can go in this app and with one scroll and one tap, get very good wind information from my location. Whereas I could probably design in another app just a screen that just gives it to me without having to tap in. It is not that much work. And the data at the end of the day, that was my big discovery from this experiment, is the weather data, which I should have known, right? Apple runs the API, but the weather data is excellent. Like, it's not just good, it's excellent, at least where I live. And that is, that's why you open a weather app, to get good weather data. So if they did make the UI a little vanilla, it's made up for by the quality of the data, in my opinion.
Yeah. One thing I think that's really important in there too is a lot of the panels have educational information if you scroll all the way to the bottom. So for instance, if I tap on the humidity one, if I scroll way down, it's got daily summary and then comparisons. And then way at the bottom, there's a paragraph explaining relative humidity and the dew point, right? Because those things have a relationship. And I think that's really great. But again, designing this for, 95% of iPhone users who are never going to download a third-party weather app, I think it's really cool that it kind of explains a little bit about what's going on. Like, I clicked into the wind one as you were speaking, and like way at the bottom, there's a scale about how they measure wind speed and how they, like, you hear on the news, like, oh, it's going to be a strong breeze, or it's going to be, a gale force winds. Like, what is gale force winds? Like, it actually teaches you, like, right in there. Okay, a gale is 39 to 45 mile per hour winds. I honestly didn't know that until I opened this as you were speaking. Like, that's really cool.
While you were talking, I was just looking at you because we do this video thing now. I was thinking you could have been a weatherman in another universe. You have that energy.
I think I have disclosed this publicly before, but I have been and actually continue to be a certified National Weather Service storm spotter. So I got that going for me.
I never knew that about you, Stephen.
Yeah, you have to renew your sort of credentials every 2 years. Not a storm chaser. In fact, they're very clear. Like, do not get in your truck and go chase a tornado.
That was my next question. Do you drive into hurricanes?
Yeah, no. In high school, where this came from, we're just off the rails now. I have told this story before, but in high school, a couple of friends of mine and we were all into weather stuff, and we actually, for a short period of time, ran a little weather website for like the Mid-South area, which is like the Memphis area. And we were super into it. It probably got like 17 views, but it was like my first like project on the internet.
Nice.
One weekend we went camping, and we knew the weather was going to be bad, but it got really bad. Like, we had like Nokia candy bar cell phones. This was probably 2002 or 2003. Not having a radar in your pocket, having no way of being notified that you're in a watch or a warning.
Yeah.
It got really bad. We were going to head back to town, and we actually became very close to being like seriously hurt by a tornado. We pulled in behind this abandoned gas station, and it took out the front of the building. And I've never heard a sound like that.
Yeah.
Like you hear about people in a tornado, like you feel the pressure drop and like the sound, like you don't even hear the sound, like you feel it. It's like your bones are moving inside of you. Anyways, I love
Wow.
weather stuff.
I didn't know that. Do you have a weather station at your house?
I don't, mainly because
Steven, I'm
if
so
I allow
disappointed.
myself to go down that route,
Okay.
it may be all I do.
Yeah.
And so
Gotcha.
I want to do it though. So
Back,
anyways,
back on track, though.
back on track.
There was one thing in the Apple weather app that you didn't like, and that's the news item. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so in a bunch of these panels, they have Apple News links to weather-related articles. And so they may be educational. So like right now, as I speak, in the conditions panel for me, I see a story from Popular Science about what is the feels like temperature. What does that mean? They may be news stories related to weather. I think that's fine. Like I'm not set against it, but I do think it should be an option to turn it off. I do think I think it's good to have some control over this. Because what if you're not an Apple News user, right? And what happens if you click those links? Like what, and it can kind of get in the way. I don't love the inclusion. I know the same thing is in the Stocks app, but it just feels like cross promotion more than cross pollination, if that makes sense.
But in fairness, you have to dig pretty far to get to those links.
Yeah. Yeah, they're in there. They do generally though insert them above the educational content, which I understand why. Like once I learned what a gale force wind is, like now I kind of know that that's pretty bad. Maybe I don't need to see that every time I tap on that panel, but it just strikes me as a little promotionally in a way that I don't love it. I would like an option to turn it off.
Yeah. Now, another piece of the puzzle, I feel like there's the panel design and then there's the radar view. Like,
yeah,
for a guy like you who's to run a weather website, I think
4 people saw it.
We need to put that in introduction. And also, Stephen Hackett, former proprietor of Miss Weather.
Yeah, I've looked on the Wayback Machine for it, and it doesn't have it, which I'd like to see.
Oh, that's so sad.
I know. And like my buddy who built it, like doesn't have any of the files. I kind of wish I had it,
But in addition to the panel design, it is the radar. It's like, I want to see the clouds, show them to me. Pretend I'm in the satellite right now, give it to me. And that was something I think Dark Sky really was a trailblazer on. They had great radar support in that app.
Yeah, and it seems very much like the weather app is the Dark Sky radar, like down to the color scheme. I'm sure it's been rebuilt by now, but it is very much the spiritual successor, if not the actual successor to Dark Sky. So you've got the radar. And before all of this, when we're talking about the history, Apple didn't have a radar in their app until this dark skyfication happened. So it was great if you want to check the temperature, but if you wanted to look at the radar, it's like, well, where do I go? Do I download an app? Do I go to a website? What do I do? So it's all in one now. There are 4 layers you can choose from. So 4 types of information you can see on the radar: precipitation, temperature, air quality, and wind, which you mentioned, right? So you can have a radar that is wind direction and speed, which, like you said, and people in your situation, like where you live, is hugely important, right? And a feature that some other weather apps don't have. I mean, a lot of weather apps have radar information, but not all of them have a wind radar. So I think that's a really nice thing. And you can loop it 1 hour or 12 hour for precipitation or wind. My only sort of critiques here are that you can't have more than one layer turned on. So if I wanted precipitation and temperature, I can't see them at the same time. And then it's just missing a lot of layers that are readily available elsewhere. So there's no cloud cover layer. And I think most critically, there's no storm watch or warning overlay that you can put on. Now, the weather app will tell you, we're going to talk about notifications in a little while, it'll tell you if there's a watch or a warning for your location, but it can also be helpful, right? Like where I live in the country, we get really bad storms. Memphis is not the Midwest, but we're south of it, and like there have been tornadoes ripped through Memphis in the past, in my lifetime. And so it can be really useful to see, okay, there's a storm line coming across Arkansas, and there are watches and warnings in Arkansas, and it is getting closer to me. But if I'm using Apple Weather, I would only know that once I'm included in a watch or a warning. Now, again, for most people, that's probably the right thing, because I do think those things can create both anxiety in people, but they can also be a little bit the boy who cries wolf. Like just because a
Exactly.
storm is really strong in Arkansas and has a watch or warning doesn't mean it'll still be that strong here. And people kind of get desensitized to it a little bit. So I don't know the reason Apple has left those things out, but I would like them to beef up the radar offering, have more layers. Like cloud cover is so easy, like and really useful, right? Like it can be very useful, and so I would like them to expand that over time.
Yeah, I think that you nailed it, though. I mean, when you're dealing with the general public, if you make too many warnings that don't come true, then they start ignoring them. And then when the important warning comes in, they ignore that
Yeah,
too.
and that is kind of the beauty of a layer, right? Like you can turn it on or off as you want, but again, you can't stack layers in Apple Weather like you can in other apps, and so I couldn't have like the storm view or the precipitation view and the even if they had it, the warning and watch boxes on top of it. So I think there's some room for some maturity here. But again, most people just want to know like where's the rain. Some people want to know about the wind or temperature. Like
Yeah.
it does a really good job at those things, and it's really clear and easy to understand with their color scheme that they've chosen.
Yeah. And as we said at the top, you got this from the Mac all the way down to your iPhone, but the WatchOS app stood out for you.
It really did. I think they did a really good job with their watch app. A lot of apps that are complicated, like even like Pedometer Plus Plus that I work on, the iOS version has a lot of stuff, and the watch version is stripped down from there. And that's a very common and honestly probably good practice for a lot of apps. But I think Apple's done a really different thing here with the weather app on the Apple Watch. So they have a bunch of complications you can set up. You tap into them, and you get 3 screens. You get current conditions, and then you get forecasts, and then there's some metric information. And you use the digital crown to scroll between the 3 screens, but then you just tap the watch face somewhere, and it cycles between things like temperature, precipitation, wind speed, etc. So it's a lot of watch apps, and I think understandably so. There's a lot of like you're tapping a button and you're going to a different view, and then you have to hit a back button. Like it's really simple. Like they did a good job here. It's like I just tap anywhere on the screen, and the data that I'm seeing changes. And that second screen, the forecast, is arranged like a clock. And so I can see around the face of the clock what the weather's going to be for the next 12 hours. That's a really clever bit of user interface,
Yeah,
and
that
one that
was
I don't
on the
see
very
very often in other apps.
Yeah, and that was on the very first Apple Watch. I mean, that in clock temperature interface. And I remember thinking that is the perfect way to render this data on a watch.
Yeah.
If you put it in a table, you'd have to scroll through a table to see it. Whereas this gives it all to you in one screen. It's a tiny screen, so you've got to conserve. And yeah, I'm with you. I think it's excellent. There's also the Apple advantage. Like I run Apple weather widgets on my Apple Watch, not third-party widgets, because they get data faster and better, and it's more current. And I know that Apple has made overtures to make that a better connection. You know, they're always worried about battery life on the watch, so they want to limit how much a third-party application can drive data into the watch and how often it can do it. But you know, weather is one where weather and calendar apps are the two where you want your watch to reflect the current,
Yeah.
appointments and the current weather. And I still find third-party apps are always seems like they're a little behind. Where, Apple has a bit of a cheat there, where I rely on and trust Apple weather data on my watch more than third-party apps.
Yeah. And the Apple Watch complications are really good. In fact, I believe looking through this, weather has more complication options than any other first-party watch app. More than calendar, way more than reminders. Like reminders just shows the stupid logo in the circle. Like show me how many tasks I have left. Anyways, I'm coming for you, reminders team, with a blog post. Just wait. But again, they've done a good job of it because people care about different things.
Yeah.
It's really, really pretty awesome on the Apple Watch.
And it wouldn't be Mac Power Users without me talking about automation. The weather app has outstanding shortcut support. Like if you want to build a shortcut, you can access all of that weather data as part of your shortcut. So you can become your own little developer if you want. And, Apple doesn't always do that, but the weather app team built all the hooks.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to do shortcuts relating to weather or triggered by weather, or anything weather related, you're covered here.
Yeah. Remember, it's been several years ago now where a lot of people were building sort of first thing in the morning shortcuts, like,
Yeah.
hey, show me
Yes.
my first couple of calendar items. Like, you could just pull weather data into it,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool.
Get a weather report in the morning along with your calendar items.
Yeah. So yeah, it's great. I think they've done a good job with all that stuff, especially the Watch app. Man, it's good.
Okay, Stephen, a weather app requires not only the ability to give you the weather when you open it, but to tell you when you need to be aware of the weather. And let's talk a little bit about the notifications and widgets we're getting with the native weather app.
Yeah, I think notifications are really important. We obviously talked about it's getting ready to rain at my location.
Yeah.
Weather inherited that from Dark Sky, and so I can get a push notification not only when rain is going to start at my location, but also when it's going to end. So, hey, the rain is going to end in 2 minutes or whatever. It's not a live activity like some other apps do, but rather a notification. I think I prefer the live activity version. I just love live activities. Notifications work everywhere, right? Not just iPhones or, the Mac menu bar. Yeah, so you can turn on notifications for weather at your current location. That includes severe weather. Hey, I am in a severe thunderstorm warning, or I'm in a tornado watch. Like, I can get a notification for that for your current location. But you can also be notified for any of your saved locations. So again, going back, I'm an hour away from home visiting my parents. I want to know if something's going on where I am, but maybe I also want to know if something's going on at home. So if there's going to be bad weather at home, I can check in and, if the kids are out, like, make sure my wife is aware of what's going to happen and, like, y'all be prepared or whatever it's going to be. I think that's great. And some weather apps sort of have a contention there of like your current location is the location and you can have others, but they don't have some of these options, some of these features. I like that Apple Weather has both of those things because it may be really important to you to know what's going on somewhere else.
Yeah, I go back and forth on the notification versus live activity question. I could see, like, if you lived in Seattle, you wouldn't want a live activity permanently on your phone because it rains
Burns
there
into
so
your
much,
iPhone screen.
But where you live in Southern California and it doesn't rain very often, actually, you kind of do want one.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I would like to have some sort of preference where I could switch that.
And it seems like a pretty easy lift for them to do, and it's a first party feature. If I have any sort of like core complaint about Apple's operating systems, it's that first party apps don't take equal advantage of first party features. And this is a prime example. Give me the option. Some people, like, I prefer the live activity, but you're right. For some people, it would just be in the way all the time. It'd be nice to have options. And of course, going back to our previous episode we just did about notifications, Weather can send optionally critical alerts that override any focus modes or silent modes. And so if it's really a serious situation, Weather can break through that stuff and get a hold of you. It will always make a sound on your phone, and you may live in a part of the country where that's really important to have.
So far, we've been pretty chipper about weather app. This is where I hit a problem, okay? Because for me, the interface for the weather app isn't the interface so much as it is the widget. Like, I just want to keep a widget on my screen. And I am extremely, as the kids would say, meh about the widgets.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Wish the widgets were sexier.
I know. Or more configurable. Like, that's my big complaint here. So Weather offers a range of widgets for the home screen and the lock screen. Forecast, details, sunrise, sunset, daily forecast. But you can't combine them. You can't say, well, I want the hourly forecast, but I also want to see sunrise, sunset, or like set it for this, it's got the location stuff, but you really kind of fall down when it comes to the options. For instance, the forecast can only be used as a medium, large, or extra large size. It doesn't support the small size, the little square guy. And the lock screen, I think, is better. It has a lot of things there, but again, you're not combining things. So if I want conditions and temperature, something like Carrot Weather or other third-party apps let me sort of assemble my own, but weather is very strict and very constrained in what it gives you. For instance, I've been running the weather app and weather widgets for like a month now preparing for this. One thing I really dislike about its widgets is that the detail widget, it shows current temperature, high, low. So I like that, right? Like it's currently 64, it's going to get up to 72, the low tonight will be 30. Like that's great. But it always shows the next time we're going to get precipitation, even if it's days away. So it's going to take space, even in the small widget, to say that the next precipitation is 4 days away. I don't need that at this time on my home screen. I just don't. Like they need to be more responsive to the situation that I'm in. And like, yeah, if it's going to rain in 10 minutes, I want that on my home screen. But I don't need to know that today on Tuesday that it's going to rain on Friday on my home screen, right? If I'm planning something, I can open the app and I can look. It just seems like some of the priorities that they have here don't quite make sense.
It just feels like they got halfway and stopped. That's the way it feels to me. And that is, to me, the biggest conundrum about this. Finishing this test is like, yeah, this app could totally work for me. I've been paying a subscription for years, and this does most of it. But the way I interface with weather primarily is a widget. And I don't open the weather app that often. And if the widget experience isn't that good, can I take advantage of the app? Maybe I'm being too particular, but I do not like the widgets.
Yeah, I mean, if you are, then I am too. Like, yeah. I really feel the same way. Like for a lot of things I want, the weather app knocks it out of the park, but the widgets do let it down. And it's just a shame because weather is like such an obvious use for a widget. They're very popular in Widgetsmith. Like people want to see the weather, the home screen, the lock screen, like they love it to have it there because then you're just sort of like aware in the background of what the weather's going to be. I think it's doubly frustrating because the watch complications are pretty good and they have a lot of options. It's like y'all kind of killed it on the complications. Like what happened on the day you were building the widgets? Like those are different things. Like I understand that, but they're not that different.
I think that's the day of Mike's retirement party or something.
Yeah.
We gotta
go.
Go.
Someone was retiring and they had too much cake at lunch and had a tummy ache or like something happened. But really, like if I were to give the weather team a list of things to do, certainly radar improvements would be on it, but the top of the list for me would be widgets. Like more types, more configuration, not having the forecast and all the sizes. Like everyone else has figured that out. Yeah, it's maybe not ideal in a small size, but like everyone else has figured it out. You can do it too, I promise.
So that's really the big gating question here before we talk about some third-party stuff is, at the end of the day, what do we tell our listeners? Is the weather app good enough?
I think it is. I went into this, I've wanted this outline, this episode for a while because I kind of wanted to answer that question for myself because I haven't really paid attention to it. And over the last month or so that I've been using it, I've been really pleasantly surprised that it's really, really good. And for most people in almost every situation, it truly is all that you need. We talk about this in terms of productivity apps, like reminders or notes or freeform. Like they're good for a lot of people, but some amount of people are going to hit the upper edge and they're going to need to go to something else. Like they're going to need to go to Todoist or OmniFocus or things, or they're going to need to go to Bear Notes or DevonThink or Obsidian, right? It feels like that threshold is much higher with the weather app. I feel like almost everyone could use this app and have their needs totally met. I think it's where you run into picky things or the thing that's really important to you in your situation or your location isn't well supported. Like, I was trying to think about examples like if a cloud cover radar is really important to you, like maybe you got solar panels on your house and you're trying to see what the week's going to be or what the day's going to be like on the radar. Like You can't do it in the weather app. Um, if you're like me and you want to see watches and warnings moving generally, west to east, like I can't do that in this app. Again, those are niche cases. Um, but I think for the listeners, I think for basically everybody, I think it's great. And I think most people know that because most people are using it, right? There's a lot of third-party weather apps out there. We're going to talk about some of them, but my instinct is that it's a pretty small sliver of the overall iPhone market that even looks at them because Apple's done a really good job here.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's good enough. And the fact that two nerds on a podcast are going to whine about the widgets, that's not going to land with most people. I think most
No.
people are like, wait, it's free and I don't have to pay and it's going to tell me when it's going to rain. Sign me up,
Yep.
and honestly, they've gone so far beyond that. They've really delivered a quality product. But, of course, we always want more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think they'll get there. Like the widgets feel like something that they could improve upon. But yeah, it's I look at people still using like they're going to like a weather website somewhere. It's like, no man, this is built in, and critically, it's free. When we get to third party apps, there is always a discussion about cost because this data is expensive, and if you are running an app at scale, like even if you have 1% of the iPhone users in the planet looking at weather apps, that's still a bunch of people,
Yeah.
right? And you can see from the WeatherKit pricing, like you can see what these things cost, and so you are always that is always a reason to look at the weather app because it's free, it's built in, it's from Apple, and it does a good job.
I think also a concern is privacy because
For sure.
weather apps need your location, and the third party apps we're going to talk about are made by reputable developers. But there's a lot of apps out there that you can find online and on the App Store that aren't so reputable, and you're not sure you want to share your location data with a weather application.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a big thing in like 2018, 2019 that a bunch of apps this was discovered about, right? People snooping network traffic or just finding this data on the web. And that's not Apple's business, right?
Yeah.
Apple's business is to sell you a phone and maybe a subscription to Final Cut, not sell your location data with weather. Like
Yeah.
that's against what they're trying to do.
You
That's a
know,
huge benefit.
with the weather app that you are 100% safe with that. Apple's not going to be scraping your data to sell somewhere else.
That's right.
Okay, so there's some concerns about privacy. There's some price, but there's still some reasons to go to a third-party application. I feel like the 800-pound gorilla we haven't mentioned the entire show, but we keep saying other apps is Carrot Weather.
Yeah.
You and I are both in the bag for Carrot Weather. It's been true for a long time. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. I mean, we did an episode on it years and years ago, but Carrot Weather is the king of customization. Honestly, I don't think just in weather apps, like I think in iOS apps in general,
Yeah.
you can build your own user interface effectively in Carrot Weather. The things that you care about most, you can put at the top of the screen. And you can change the way the graphs and charts look. Do you want to scroll horizontally or vertically? Also has a huge range of radar options, and you can stack several of them, which is great. The widgets are customizable. The Carrot Weather is what did the weather apps widgets in for me, because a lot of them have some customization, but Carrot Weathers, like if you want the conditions, you can say what conditions you want there. So like on my home screen, I've got the temperature, the feels like temperature, high, low, and then the next sunrise or sunset, because that's something I care about.
Yeah. And I can get the wind and the humidity and so it's very powerful. And that thing you said, I want to just put a point on. Carrot Weather is an application design platform. I mean, you can go into Carrot Weather and literally change the way it lays out. And I think this is the first app I ever saw do this. And I really feel like this is a model that other app categories should look into. Like, why not make a task management app where you can design what the view is for the user when they open the app? Because maybe the start items are more important, or maybe they're not important at all. And like this idea of the user being able, the power user, to be able to go in and say, I want this, this, and this element, and I want them in this order every time I open this app, this productivity app. I wish that would take off. And Carrot Weather, to me, if nothing else, gives you a place to see how that should work.
Carrot Weather also supports a bunch of different weather services, right? We've been talking about Apple Weather and sort of by extension WeatherKit, but that may not be super accurate where you live. And we've mentioned this website before, but Forecast Advisor is a website like you plug in your location and it gives you historic data that they track about the accuracy of various weather sources. And Carrot Weather, you can switch between a bunch of them. You can even do it temporarily to like just see what the differences are. Some other apps do that as well, but Carrot Weather, again, was the first app that I saw that really embraced the idea that not only do I want to change the way that the app looks, but I want to change the data that's coming into it. Because I mean, we've heard from listeners and readers over the years that Apple Weather and WeatherKit actually isn't super accurate in some parts of the world, and that can change over time, right? And so I think that's another like big win for me, at least in Carrot Weather, that you have that capability, those options. And I think another one that's huge is Carrot Weather has a very wide range of notification types and options. So maybe with what you're doing, it's really important to know if lightning strikes within 5 miles of you. You can just make a notification type that does that, right? You may not give a hoot about lightning. Okay, well, I don't need those notifications. But for somebody, that could be a really big deal, right? Like if you are if you're the facilities manager at a school and you've got kids outside, maybe you need to know if lightning's in the area and like pull them off the baseball field, right? Like that stuff happens. That stuff's real. And it's just one example of many within Carrot Weather that you can really fine tune them, get exactly what you want. And it does support the live activities, like we said, for rain. And Ada has a CarPlay app, which I just love. Weather apps have shown up on CarPlay now, but they are basically mapping apps with weather on top of them. Brian, the developer at Carrot Weather, built this before Widgets and live activities made it to CarPlay. So I think the importance of it now moving forward is maybe a little bit less. But Brian does a really good job at adopting new Apple technologies. Like there's a native Vision OS version of Carrot Weather. That is not true of hardly anybody else, but he was there.
Well, I mean, the best apps are often by a very small team or one-person developer and somebody who's passionate about just making it great. And Carrot Weather is always going to be at the top of the list of weather apps embracing every new technology and feature they can. It's got a very different user interface. I mean, if you're picky like me and you're like, well, I just don't like the way it looks, Carrot Weather's worth looking at because the look of it's different. It's a little more whimsical, I think, is the way I'd put it. It's got a personality in it where it can talk to you and you can set like just a sign to the times. You can make it liberal or conservative or snarky or whatever. And I turn all that stuff off. But
me too.
He's having fun with it and you can put that in. Just the idea that it's kind of a weather robot. But I really think that the Carrot Weather is the obvious first choice if for whatever reason, like whether the Apple weather notifications aren't working well in your location or you just want a different look, I would check it out. But it's going to cost you money. Yeah,
it is. Carrot Weather has kind of a tiered subscription approach. You can kind of pay for just what you need, which I think is great because again, people have different priorities. But yeah, you're gonna pay a subscription for it. But again, that's true for everybody else too. That's not unique to Carrot Weather.
And I would guess that the vast majority of people listening to this are going to try the weather app and say, or are already using the weather app and say, yeah, this is great. I don't need to buy anything. But there's another level up. We wanted to mention a couple other apps that we thought were reliable and recommendable. I really like Mercury Weather.
Yeah.
What I like about it is the design is so different.
Mm-hmm.
Again, for me, almost in some instances, just as important as having good data is having a delightful design when I open it. And Mercury Weather does that.
Yeah, it's really, really nice looking. They've done a good job at sort of embracing I mean, it is liquid glass, but sort of a little bit of their own take on it, which I think
Yeah.
is nice. Very colorful. And if you used Weatherline way back in the day, which I mean got sold off years ago, it it has a Weatherline like feel in the way that its information is portrayed. And some people like just swear by that layout. And you can do that in Carrot Weather, but in Mercury Weather, it's basically how it works. It also has a really nice feature of monthly averages, so you can see kind of where you are compared to where you should be. But I think the killer feature of Mercury Weather is trip forecasts. So you can go in and you can add a location, but you can bracket that location with dates. So, and basically any other app, say that I'm going to Denver next week. I would have to like put Denver in as a location ahead of time to see what I need to pack. And then, then my current location would take over once I was there. But then when I come home, Denver is still like hanging out in my weather app. And I'm sure everyone has had this experience. It's like you go into your list of locations in your weather app and there's like 30 places in there because they just pile up over time. And what Trip Forecast lets you do in Mercury Weather is like, I'm going to be in Denver these dates. And you can like label your trip and give it a little icon. And then when you're on your trip, the weather there is very easily accessible. And when you go into the locations, those are separate. And so when the date has passed, it's not in your face anymore. And I think it's really great. Like I had a test trip that ended yesterday. And now in locations, that test trip is no longer here because it was only relevant to me for a set amount of time. And I think it's a brilliant feature. And if you travel a lot, Mercury Weather is definitely one to have on your list.
And what I like about it is the visual design. My brain collects data on visual layout so much faster than a table, and Mercury does that. Like you said, Carrot also does that. You added one to the list that I have not spent a lot of time with. Hello Weather.
Yeah, my wife uses Hello Weather, and I've known those guys for a little while. It's kind of in between Mercury and Carrot in some ways. It does offer some customization, but it's not like full-blown customization the way that Carrot is. It gives you, if you have premium, you have different forecast data sources, and you have a really nice radar as well. It is a little bit simpler, but the design is really clean, and it does have a really wide range of widgets, as does Mercury. I will say Hello Weather, their widgets aren't super customizable. Mercury Weather is kind of customizable, and the Carrot Weather is, again, the king of customization. But it's a great alternative, and it's really nice and clean and simple. The Apple Watch is really simple. So we talked about the Apple's first-party one, which is great, but there's a lot going on. And Hello Weather, they basically just shrank the main screen of the iPhone down. So you just like scroll with your finger, the digital crown, everything is right where you expect it to be, which I think is also a really totally fine and like reasonable way to do it as well. You don't have to do it the way Apple.
And that's kind of getting back to the point earlier that the weather apps are a UI playground, and there's different ways to render the data, and finding one that jives with the way your brain works is part of the process. But I think the big takeaway today is Apple Weather app is surprisingly good. Like when we first put this in the outline, I said, "Man, Steven's gonna slag this app," and because I know what a big fan you are of Carrot, but it sounds like that wasn't really the case for you.
Yeah, very pleasantly surprised. I think the team over there at Apple Weather have been doing a good job. And I think if you haven't looked at it, like if maybe even if you've been using a third-party app or like, especially a bad one, right? Or one that's like loaded with ads, not built by a reputable indie developer, give it a shot. Like I was quite impressed. And I think if you haven't seen it in a while, my guess is that you will be too.
All right. We are the Mac Power Users. You can find us at relay.fm/MPU. Go there for feedback and membership. Thank you to our sponsors this week, 1Password and Squarespace. On More Power Users today, the ad-free extended version of the show, we're going to be talking about Apple turning to Google to help them figure out their AI conundrum. So stick around and check it out. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.